So welcome back. My name is Gersand. I live in Tiohtià:ke, or Montréal as it's known, in Quebec in North America, which is also known as Turtle Island. I have a degree in creative writing. I am an aspiring writer, but that is very much a work in progress. So my day job is mostly translation between English and French, as well as copywriting and a few other bits and bobs. I am your typical gig worker with a million different hats. What is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. That does describe me. I'm a rank amateur in basically everything that I do, but the one thing that I do know how to do and that I love is reading, and so that is why welcome to my reading vlog. So if you haven't been here before, I have recorded twice already since late February of 2021. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome. I like to read a lot of different things. I read in both French and in English. So I love fiction. Literary fiction is probably my favorite, as well as genre fiction, so fantasy and magical realism, and of course some science fiction. I do love science fiction. But that doesn't really even scratch the surface of all that I read. I read a lot of nonfiction and a lot of philosophy and political theory as well, so you know, stick around because there's going to be a little bit of something for everyone. And of course I am, as I'm going to be talking about on the vlog today, I am starting to dip my toes into reading more YA because I am thinking of possibly writing a YA novel. So I've been sort of trying to learn the secrets of the YA genres. I know a lot of YouTube, booktube content consumers do love their YA, so I'm here for that. This vlog that's coming out is going to maybe be a little bit out of order because I recorded about a week ago, I believe, my thoughts about reading Maryse Condé's absolutely beautifully written Moi Tituba Sorcière. And I'm probably actually going to be putting it a little bit later in the vlog.
Hi, editing Gersand here. So there were some technical difficulties with the audio from the recording that I made on March 16th for Moi Tituba Sorcière, so that is going to be re-recorded and inserted into the next vlog. So let's get back to it, shall we?
I wanted to start off today, first of all, because I sort of realized I hadn't introduced myself, so I wanted to get that out of the way. And second of all, à propos justement, I wanted to talk about YA, because the book that I've just finished is Jenn Bennet's Lady Rogue. I had recently on Netflix, I had watched The Mummy, and I sort of felt like reading a book that had a little bit of that late 1800s, early 1900s Egyptomania. I wanted something kind of along that, and somebody had recommended me Lady Rogue, and when I looked up the reviews were all very positive, so I decided to check it out. One of the reasons why it's taken me so long to film this, in particular, I've been sort of putting it off, is because I did not enjoy it. I really didn't. There were bits that I thought were well executed. It's very rare that I like outright hate a book. On the whole, I didn't like it, and usually with books that I don't like, I don't finish them. But this one I decided to finish because I had reason to believe that the end would be worth it. It wasn't quite the case, and I really, really wrestled with whether or not I should even talk about books that I don't like on this vlog. And this is actually something that I've carried over from my blog, because I've written a blog for a very long time. If I'm going to spend some time to actually sit down and write my thoughts about something, I want it to be something that I enjoyed or gave me something to chew on. A vlog is supposed to be kind of informal. I'm sort of just speaking to the camera and sharing my off-the-cuff thoughts. I was really wrestling with the idea of sharing critical or even negative thoughts about a book. So I think with the vlog, I will probably mention whenever there's been a book that I haven't enjoyed. I probably will try to talk about it, but I want to be really balanced. I do want to preface that if I say that I don't like a book, it doesn't mean that the book is necessarily be bad or even problematic. I'm hoping one day to put my books out there so I know how scary it is. I have a sort of even more personal reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to critique something or to share my own negative thoughts about something, and it actually goes back to my own experiences as a creative writing undergrad. And see, this is why I suddenly realized I haven't actually spoken about my background at all on this vlog, because it's very likely that most of you don't even know that I have a creative writing degree, but I do. And one of my most formative early experiences of that degree actually came from a fiction writing workshop. It was my first fiction writing workshop. And one thing that you need to know is that to get into the program that I had to get into, you actually have to submit a portfolio. And if they think you have potential on the basis of your writing, that matters, as well as your background and your grades and your own academic history at that point. For this first assignment, we all had to submit a small sample of our writing to this workshop, and the professor took our names off of all of the pieces, and we all had to discuss each piece without knowing who was the other person on the other side. And I happened to be in a group where we were actually discussing my own piece, and I was really interested in what people were going to say. And no one in the group knew that one of the texts that we were looking at was one of mine, and there was someone in my small group who actually, to my face, without knowing that I was the one who wrote it, said, "I can't believe they let a writer as bad as this one get into the program." And I remember how devastated I was hearing that bit of criticism. This was my first class. I was extremely nervous about going back to university. Needless to say that was actually a bit devastating. That's why I've always been very conscious, self-conscious even, about criticizing novels that I don't like. So that's why this whole disclaimer is essentially because I want to preface any criticism that I ever make on my vlog or on my blog even. I want people to understand that that's why I've always been a little bit timid about criticizing. I think the thing about Lady Rogue is that it is a YA book, and it's very possible that I'm 30 years old. I'm simply not the target audience for this book. I'm also a queer non-binary person. It is a heterosexual romance that fuels much of the character development in this book. It's extremely tropey. I'm often quite behind tropes when they're subverted in some way, or when it's just tons of fun and the tropes are just there and a little bit like lampshaded. The plot is almost winking at you. I'm usually 100% on board for that kind of thing. I really try not to be a snob when it comes to literary devices or plot devices. One of the reasons why I actually read the book until the end was because there were bits of the actual plot and the mystery building that I thought were well executed, and I thought that Jenn Bennet was very good at creating a compelling mystery. But where the book really lost me was on the character development of its main character in particular, and on the romance between the two principal characters. And I'm not gonna dig into it too much, but it just it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, maybe. And I also didn't find it that interesting. Of course, maybe if I was a young 14-year-old who was really into this kind of Han Solo, Princess Leia dynamic of we're gonna bicker but we really love each other, and it's not really enemies to lovers. A lot of the conflict is a little bit too dramatic and like over the top and doesn't feel necessarily reasonable, but of course they're teenagers, so of course the drama is over the top. Anyways, this is why I think that it's very likely I'm just not the target audience for Lady Rogue. So it's not a book I'd recommend, but if you liked it, like, that's amazing, and and please don't feel criticized by this whole thing. Ugh, this is gonna be tough. I'm gonna have a really hard time talking about books that I don't like. So that was my most recent foray into YA, which was not fantastic. Okay, well, that's that. So there will be more content coming your way. And yeah, I think that's it for this update. We are March 30th today, and I
made good on my promise to read something Tolkienish for Tolkien Reading Day on March 25th. Unfortunately, I was working on the 25th, so I couldn't actually drop everything to pick up Tolkien and read, but I was able to claw out some delicious reading hours yesterday and today, and I made it through Beren and Luthien by Christopher Tolkien. His son put together from his father's myriad collection of notes and drafts enough of the tale of Beren and Luthien as his father imagined it as a part of the Quinta Silmarillion, or as part of the verses of the Lays of Luthien, I think. That's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. I really, really enjoyed it. I think that if you're not a diehard Tolkien fan, there's not a ton here for you. But if you do love the world of Tolkien, if you in particular liked the world of the Silmarillion and the mythology that it paints, this is maybe a book that you'd be interested in. I'd also maybe recommend this book to anyone who's interested in epic poetry, because much of the tale of Beren and Luthien Tolkien put to verse. It reminded me a lot of Milton's Paradise Lost at times, especially with the way it teases out old world European mythology, and in order to create something new and mythical and kind of unknown. It feels very fresh in that way. I also really enjoyed it because it allows you to see how the author iterated on all of his ideas and went from something like a fairy tale, kind of comical and impish, and turned that into, through many, many rewrites, into the high fantasy genre that we recognize from Lord of the Rings. I think we often forget how new and exciting that genre must have been when it came out in the 30s. I think it's why the works have endured the way they have. It's wonderful, like just as a bit of literary archaeology, to dive into these old notes and letters and poems and tease out how it was all done, because it can seem like this Oxford philologist had this entire world that just emerged from his head like Athena. But in fact, it was something that developed over decades from his childhood up until through the First World War, and then followed him through his studies at Oxford and then his academic career. Over the years, he was able to refine and refine and refine his work until he was able to distill those stories that are so wonderful. So I also found it refreshing that there was this sort of, I joke a lot that I ship Sam and Frodo, because who doesn't? And I also, as a kind of joke, but also seriously, I ship Eowyn and Merry, because I find it hilarious. I love tall women. But it's sort of nice to have a canon romance where the romance is this epic love story. I was never really into Arwen and Aragorn. I just kind of didn't go for that when I was younger, and Eowyn and Aragorn never seemed that interesting to me either. And of course, yes, there's Eowyn and Faramir, but that was even I think Tolkien regretted that. Although, don't at me, Tolkien scholars, I don't know what I'm talking about. I think for a tale of as highly romantic as The Lord of the Rings, it's good that there's like one solid epic romance with tragedy and dancing and just a lot of beauty. I'm really glad that I was able to read at least one new Tolkien work. This is the HarperCollins hardback, and there are color illustrations in this version that are really beautiful and that help you visualize along with the prose. It was really lovely to spend a little bit of time in the Legendarium and feel like I was learning new things. I have a few other things to read. Unfortunately, the library confiscated. I had to return to the library a bunch of books that I hadn't yet finished. So I don't actually know what the next book is going to be for the vlog. I have to decide if I'm going to wait until those books come back or if I'm going to start something new. There's so much to be read and so much to do, and I'm feeling wonderfully energetic because of the sun, and it's just been a beautiful, gloriously sunny day. We've had some real luck with the weather lately, so it's just giving me a lot of energy. So anyways, that's that, and thanks for joining, and let's get to reading. I'll see you soon.
It is the 31st of March, and I squeezed in one more read before the end of the month, and I finished reading CL Polk's Stormsong last night. I really enjoyed the book. I read Witchmark, the first book in this series, the Kingston cycles, I think they're called. I read the first book in the summer, and I really enjoyed it. There's a beautiful fairy-like Edwardian, almost steampunk but not quite there vibe to the world of Aeland that is very, very present in the first book. I really liked the protagonist Miles and his kind of almost rivals to lovers, but not quite. It's more like frenemies to lovers, because the two main love interests, Tristan and Miles, don't know if they can trust each other at the beginning, because for reasons that I'm not going to spoil, but it's very compelling. And I really liked their relationship. I was really looking forward to Stormsong, but I did have some reservations because, unlike Witchmark, Stormsong is not following Miles as the point of view character. Instead, Stormsong follows Miles's older sister, Grace. And Dame Grace Hayland is not necessarily the most sympathetic of characters. Very well executed character. In the first book, in all of the right ways, she's threatening. She definitely creeped me out. She is responsible for some really unforgivable behavior towards her brother and towards all of Aeland, and very complicit in a very, very unjust and cruel regime. I was very tentative, let's say, approaching Stormsong. I didn't know that much about the plot, but I did know that the narrative was going to be following Grace's point of view, and I was not sure how much I was going to love that. However, thankfully, by the time you get about a quarter ways through the book, it's very, very difficult to harbor resentment towards a character when you're literally walking in their footsteps and seeing all the ways in which they themselves are a puppet on strings and how stuck they are, because as much as Grace is a complicit person, she is also very much a cog in the machine, and her desires aren't her own. She's not allowed to love the people she wants to love. She's not allowed to fight for the people she wants to fight for. She's not even able to protect her brother from being used by the crown or by other mages in cruel ways. Much of this book is about Dame Hayland needing to learn what she needs to become in order to actually fight to protect her brother, to protect herself, and to protect the people that she loves. Much of her life before the events of Stormsong, she's never actually permitted herself to love people properly. There were parts of this book that I enjoyed a little less. Most of this book is built around palace intrigue. Most of the book takes place in the royal palace right before there's a huge regime change, and all the characters can feel that something very serious is about to happen, whether that's a full-on bloody revolution or just a peaceful transition of power. No one can tell, but everyone has different agendas. Everyone is not only fighting for their own interests, but possibly also expressing the interests of parties that have been removed from the playing field, like Miles and Grace's father, but are still pulling puppet strings in all sorts of places. And then there's, of course, a murder that needs to be investigated, and a magical mystery, and the fate of Aeland itself needs to be decided. And so, whereas you had this sort of very whimsical and investigating a mystery and running around Aeland and investigating all sorts of different places in the first book, Witchmark, Stormsong is much more contained to the palace, and that is fine. I kind of missed the world from the first book, but I understood why Stormsong was focused so much on the palace. Like, as you can tell from the cover, like, there's this beautiful sleigh with, like, an actual winter storm behind it. The Stormsong did have a beautiful sort of winter wonderland feel to it, almost like a Romanov Russian winter right before the revolution kind of feel to it, and I dug that. Of course, I can't forget about Avia and Grace, the protagonist romance. When Avia and Grace are sort of revealed by the plot to sort of have a lot of unresolved sexual tension and to have a lot of desire for each other, I was actually surprised because I hadn't read the back of the book before starting. I did not see it coming at all, and I was very pleasantly surprised. And I did like Avia's vibe, and I thought that the romance was compelling. It totally fits Grace's characterization that she is also a queer character, and that her accepting of her queerness, as well as accepting that she is going to pursue her queer desires, does actually mirror her own political engagement towards no longer accepting a status quo that is as oppressive as the one she lives in. By the end of the book, she becomes almost a revolutionary in her own way. I really appreciated how CL Polk sort of teased those two elements together. Did you like the book too? I think he also liked the book. Le Floof approves of the queer content in Stormsong. There's probably more that I could say, but I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I think this is going to be my last video update for the third vlog, because I did promise to have it up by the first couple days of April, and that is tomorrow and Friday. And I have so much editing left to do. Oh my gosh. No one told me that video editing took so long. That's a lie. A lot of people told me. I'm very happy to end on Stormsong because I really liked this book and it gave me a lot of good feels. I have to say that I was expecting to have read more books by the end of March. I often write down lists of what I'm hoping to do by the end of the month, which lets me know that I was being also very overambitious. But I also worked a lot more than I was expecting in March, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing because it interfered with my reading. It's the worst. And so I'm hoping that April will be as productive as March was, if not more. I have a lot of things that I need to actually get back from the library. More reading is coming anon, and more time with this floof monster is also coming. It's been, what, 5 or 6 weeks since I've started vlogging, and I have found this entire journey really rewarding and very interesting. Thank you so much to every single person who has sent me a message, whether it's been in my DMs or in a comment down below, or just telling me about what they're reading or how maybe my excitement about a book bumped it up on their TBR. I really, really appreciated that. It brought me a lot of joy to be able to share my reading and to sort of feel like I'm having a conversation and that I'm sharing a cup of tea with you all while talking about books. That's just been very, very energizing and has helped actually curb a lot of the loneliness that I'm feeling, despite the fact that I'm just talking into a camera. But it's been really, really rewarding for me. So I really hope that these videos are enjoyable and that they bring a little something extra to your days. If you do want to support this channel, you can. You can support me on Patreon. The links are all going to be down below. I really appreciate any show of support. It means the world to me. It allows me to actually put time aside for not only reading, but for filming and editing the vlog, which does take a little bit of time. If you're just here to have a good time, that's all right too. Do consider subscribing and leaving a comment down below. I want to hear all about your reading. I want to hear about how your TBRs are doing. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading with this monster here. And I'll see you next time. So thank you so much for joining, and let's get to reading. Bye.